A very warm good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Namibia. I'm Matthias Haufiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Well, welcome to an exciting edition of The Agenda. Well, it's Sunday evening. Of course, we have about an hour together to discuss pertinent matters affecting our society. Tonight we speak gender matters. Of course, last week in the National Assembly, the NUDO parliamentarian, Honorable Joseph Kauandenge, spoke about laws which he feels perhaps needs to be addressed as far as gender equality is concerned. Of course, we are used to, when we speak gender equality, it's mainly pro-women and uplifting women. So there's a certain feeling that we need to come up with laws that really ensure there's equity as far as men and women are concerned in our society. So we joined in studio tonight by Ms. Rosa Namises, former parliamentarian, human rights activist, women's activist. A lot of heads that you carry, ma'am.
Mostly those two.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
And it's good to have you here. Mr. Kauandenge?
Yes.
Well, you stoked this fireball. That's why we're here today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you just give us a brief outlay of your thought process when you made those remarks? What made you get up in the house and make those remarks?
Yes, thank you, Haufiku. Well, I have been listening for the past 2 months, I think, in Parliament, when the Justice Minister tabled the Combating of Domestic Violence Amendment Bill. And for those 2 months, every parliamentarian that took the floor was just talking about how our women folks have been beaten at home, that the laws and the sentences must be made very stiff, and that they cannot get out of prison and what. And I said, yes. But that is one dimension of this whole issue, that women are abused at home, that women are beaten at home. And before I stood up in Parliament, I made a disclaimer to say that what I'm going to say does not necessarily mean that I'm not pro or I'm not in support of stiffer sentences, because for me, I also have kids. Some of them are ladies, girls, what have you. So, of course, society must look after the vulnerable members of society. However, the ignorance, the level of ignorance of some of our MPs in that parliament, can you believe it that a member of parliament, a minister for that matter, stood up on Tuesday and said, Honorable Kauandenge, I don't believe, I haven't heard of boys being raped by women. Can you believe it? A minister, a whole minister for that matter, should stand up in Parliament and make that statement. While we know for a fact that the term Quen, Suka Mamis, where did it come from? It came from somewhere. That we have women in this country that are exploiting boys, that are having sexual intercourse with little boys under the guise of economic, whatever you have it, and what. These are things that are happening within our society. So when I stood up in Parliament, I said, yes, we have laws in this country that seemingly on a piece of a paper from a distance seems to look after the well-being of both men and women. We have the equality bill, what have you. Those are on the state books, they are there. But my problem was with the implementation thereof and the aspect that sentences should be increased to deter men to beat their wives at home. I said we must look to this issue holistically. It's a societal issue. Our moral decays in a society, it's beyond stiff sentences, because we have men in our households that are being beaten by women, that are being exploited emotionally and financially. But the moment when this man goes to report these cases at the police station, it's the same man that says, come on, you cannot come and report that you have been beaten by your wife or girlfriend. Go back. So where are now society, as much as we want to protect the most vulnerable of our society, what about this part of men that really are being exploited at their households? So this is where I say we have listened to one aspect for the past 2 months. I'm going to bring the other dimension as to what is happening in our households. Yes.
Ms. Namises, of course, over the years, you've dealt with these issues at the community level, at a really grassroots level. What have you picked up listening to Honorable Kauandenge? How's the situation on the ground?
Yeah, I think it's important to look back to the past and maybe from there talk of the presence, because the past teaches us about things. I think the fact that today the women are being the front and everybody would speak about them was that there was a women's movement before independence. The women were feeling the pinch. They were abused and oppressed as much as the men were. But I think their voices were raised already earlier on. And why did that kind of thing happen? Because the men were brought up in the macho side, and they were the patriarchs. They are the strong ones. They should never cry. They never have any difficulties. They are to stand stock stiff there as the people, and they have the privileges. So that was the two dimensions that was there. And because they were kind of, even if the race cut was there, they were kind of privileged at certain levels. This was, like he also said, that women were more the oppressed ones. And as a result, I think we made our noise and we came up. But along the way, we had the luck to have our own laws. I think the laws are not men exclusive. It is both women and men. Our constitution, both of us all. The only people maybe is the differently sexually oriented people that are not party. But the rest of us are very clear that we are included there. And because we are all there, I think the women took up their... Now, he was saying it's the parliamentarians talking about all these things there, saying that maybe putting the men now very low. But I think out here in the society, what we did was, and that's maybe what we also pick up, what we did was, as much as the laws are now even being amended, because we started to shout out and said there are loopholes, there are gaps here, we need to make it more inclusive, or we need to amend certain things that are not fitting, like the protection orders. For example, there we want to protect the men, because sometimes he is called by the very complainant to come back to the house where she has put up the protection order, for example. So what has happened was the women, I think, has been in the forefront, talking about their oppression, talking about their sexual abuse, talking about their rape, talking about their general economic exploitation. And so that was what we did. And that was what was loud and clear. It is true, out there, not with the parliamentarians, but out in the society. So the thing also happens that, and I think it should have happened all over, when somebody's in the statistic much more oppressed, maybe you hold a little bit to those who have the privilege, so that you bring up these people who are experiencing that difficulty, whatever it is. And when these people are at the same level, then you start to push now for equity. And I think that's where we are. Because I picked up that about 2010, our organization that has been vocal around women and children, speak now about bringing in the boys, started to talk about that. Why should it not be? Because they are not included, they are not active. Way back in 2008, for example, we said, talk, men should talk. We started the Namibian Men for Change organization, so that the men can speak, and men can participate, and men can be there. And that never worked. It was closed, or ours went on. We don't know what power dynamics that came. We have the White Ribbon campaign. When we were marching to say, stop the violence, the men were marching, stop baby dumping. So we were at loggerheads. They were speaking because they found out that they also have a problem. I think it has gone on like that. So for me, there is awareness that it's time that our men should be included, and the laws that are there, maybe the implementation should be from the state. Us, we are demanding from civil societies that the laws should be pushed to cater for all of us. Now it's through the civil society push and making it clear how it should be that these amendments are also coming up. Yeah. But I think the other side is that our society really has taken on that notion that the men are the breadwinners, the men are the strength of the household, and really we have taken on that thing and we have killed our men.
Yeah.
So much so that...
But when you say we have killed our men, what exactly are you referring to?
What I say is, when I say we have killed our men now, where we are, find themselves not to deal with their own trauma. They find themselves very hopeless, because I think women are strong and women are moving into balancing their economic and their social being, and so it leaves the men a little behind. So when your ego is striked, when your humanness is striked, how can you, when your fellow men, I mean, we have been fighting for our men at the police station. We have started the Women and Child Protection Unit. We discovered, why do we call it Women and Child? Let us change the name. Let us put Gender Violence Unit, so that they can also come. The police themselves are men. They have been brought up in the patriarchal system and in the macho men kind of system, and they rebuke their own men when they report there, go back home, do this. A whole police officer who's supposed to reason differently and give support for that man. Either it's us that are encouraging our men to say, you must report, you must talk about this thing, don't keep quiet, and so on. And I think the whole question of society has brought up all kinds of terms and all kinds of practices that has been normalized. Having sex with little girls, the men are doing that, the women are doing. The only thing we need to see is in the stats, how are we doing? But for me, it's also not only looking at the stats, what has happened to the moral values of these people, so that they keep on doing this kind of thing. It doesn't matter to which magnitude the men are doing. Like now, the violence perpetrated by men is very high against the women. But as he mentioned, the violence or the abuse, of course, maybe physical, not so much, but emotional, is not in that high magnitude for women against the men. But it exists. These both dynamics are existing. And therefore that kind of thing kills our men and our boys.
Let me just hold your thoughts here. I want to bring Honorable Kauandenge in here. Is it really an issue of the law not catering for men, or is it more our social construct? She mentioned the upbringing of boys. Perhaps that's where the problem starts. She also mentioned the issue of the women and child, just the classic example, women and child
protection unit.
Protection unit instead of a gender violence unit. So is it really a thing of the law, or is it more our social construct?
Well, I think it's quite both, because when I took issue with the minister in parliament, the justice minister, if you look at this domestic amendment bill, it only talks about punishing the perpetrators, right? But it doesn't take into consideration, as I have said, before these men start getting abusive to his partner, what are the underlying factors that brings him? Of course, it's something that should not be condoned or be supported, but what are the issues? But if you look deeper, if you really look deeper, you will start to see a pattern of how this man has been abused emotionally, economically, until he comes to that stage. These are also happening. But unfortunately, our laws just talk about minimum, increase the sentences. Whoever is found guilty of beating that woman, ETCD, he or she must get, if it is 10 years now, he must get 15 years. My question in Parliament was, we have the Stock Amendment Bill, draconian as it is currently, where if you steal a goat or a sheep or whatever, the sentences are really draconian. And I'm yet to see one day someone that have the guts and the money to take that law and put it at the Supreme Court of our Republic, that law will be declared null and void and illegal, to say the least. It's in conflict with the Constitution, because you equate the life of or the goats to the life of a person. But still, while that sentences are there, that stiff sentences are there, people are still stealing. We are still having stock theft in this country. So the punishment aspect of our laws does not really help us. So where do we go? We go back to society. It's so hypocritical for us as Namibians, I'm telling you, to say that we are 90% Kama Christians, right? That's what we are saying. We have all the churches that preach the doctrines of the Bible, the man is the head of the household, and what. That is where we are going back to what you say, the societal norms and standards that we have in this country. But let me ask this question. The moment when women activists start saying that you have a right and the man is not the head of the household, what are we saying? What are we creating? Right? I use an example in Parliament of the current Tanzanian president when she took over that country after the death of Magufuli. She said she's the third wife. She announced that to the world. And until today, she bows down to her husband when serving food to her husband. You know what women activists around the world made of that? They castigated, they took issue with her that she's living in the dark ages in this day and age. She must not do that. But she said, I have been doing that, and I'm happily married for 30 years, right? But what are we saying, and what are we teaching our girls today? We are teaching them that, no, come on, man. As far as the laws are concerned, you are equal in that household. We are coming from our parents that raised us to be where we are today. We hardly had them arguing over in the night, or if they had quarrels, they only know themselves. But it was far removed from us as kids. We did not know about these things. So now, that's where the crack of the matter is, where we say that everybody is equal. Okay, so if we are equal, fine. Where does the respect comes in? The respect is out of the window. And where there is no respect, there is no love in that household. Yeah. So all what I'm saying is that, yes, as much as we want to empower the men, the women of our society, we must also not leave out the boy child. I said that also in Parliament. Yeah. Because we only talk about the girl child. What about the boy child? If we are to reform society tomorrow, that our kids that we have now given birth to, that they must not continue the way we were raised, we must actually also include the boy child in the discussion. Yeah. For him to teach him that, no, the value of the woman is this and this and this. You must not beat a woman because of A, B, C, D, and. Yeah. So, and I took issue with the President of the Republic in Parliament publicly, where he berated men. They are forever at the bars, drinking, and doing nothing with their education and whatnot. I said, Mr. President, have you tried to find out why many men are at the bars instead of their house at night? Yeah. Because sometimes when they just walk into the door, it's already chaos in the household. Right? Yeah. So there are underlying issues why we have a society that continues to be so disorganized, so disillusioned. But we only look to one aspect. Yes, a man has beaten a woman. The law says what? Maximum 10 years. Are we rehabilitating these people even in our prison services at the end of the day to come back to society? So it's a whole kind of a concept that not only it should be narrowed down to women being beaten and women being abused, and that's where our laws are going to. But what about the bigger picture? And that is what is my problem.
Yeah. And we'll go for a short break before we come back. And after the break, I want us to really touch on the issue of the social construct, the setup of what we know as a traditional household. Of course, he seemed to briefly have touched on it as to what the women's role in the house is or in the marriage. So I'd like us to talk about that when we come back from the break and just gather your thoughts around it. To our viewers, let me just go for a short break and we'll be back to continue this very insightful discussion.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact evening@synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Well, welcome back to our viewers. Let's continue our conversation. Madam Namises, the social construct of what really constitutes a household, the way we know it back then, and how you think we should perhaps rearrange things going forward to really suit the modern way of living. What do you think is the way forward? And of course, in terms of conflicts, especially when it comes to the traditional setup of what a household is, and the laws, especially the modern laws, that really speaks to gender parity. How do we balance the two? Can we actually balance the two? Can they coexist?
They can. I think what has happened is society was changed because changes happen. And our lives in this country also changed drastically. And it has evolved over the years. I think many years ago, I think the people were never in households, sitting in sitting rooms and having bedrooms. They were out there in the forest and step around and sleep where the sun sets and then go on. And that was their nuclear families, each one in their spaces where food is and where water is. But I think, and of course, even most of them, I remember being very naked there and doing their own ways of living. But then I think people were brought back to become assembled. And when they were assembled, it was not by their own choice. It was actually then a forced choice. And different assemble points happened. Some went to reserve, some went to forced labor, some went to matchbox houses where they never knew how it will work, being given and blocked or squeezed into a small space where they had the whole open spaces out there. And this has actually become the start where families were organized in their way that they were organized. When you look at traditional homesteads, you would see how they are set up and how spacious they are, and everything is at their space and spot. And that's how families would live. But when you look at the new setup, you see that it's a brick house, toilet outside, and tap water outside, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, and a sitting room with other just two rooms. I don't know whether it was meant to be a kitchen and bedroom or whatever. 3 rooms, kitchen, sitting room, and 1 sleeping room, assuming that people only lived maybe 2 or 3 in the house, whereas our people were living more than 5. And I think that situation has changed, and changed to where we are, Kabashus now, shanty towns, whatever. And I think as that is happening, people's contact and people's behaviors are also affected. Whereas I have not much space to dress myself, and my brother can see me naked there, or my father has no space with my mother to have any sexual encounters. We hear, we see. So that is some deeper changes that happen. And those create their own trauma. I think also what happened was in the setup where we talk of the family, it was broken. There is no longer really a place where you can say, I'm practicing my cultural behavior, how my parents used to do that.
Yeah.
So many people who would not even speak their native tongue in the house, it's rather English that they are speaking. And Kama, they are now so cultural. But they speak and they eat differently. We have changed, and we have lost that. And as a result, also in the economic structure that we are in, employment became, we believe, to go to be employed. We have lost the fact that we could employ ourselves and work for ourselves. We believe, I always say in Afrikaans, as the Obibus Klim and by iemand say is gaan afklim project. You know, you just get into the bus to go to somebody, but you can really stay at home. So in our cultures, we were taught to be self-determined, self-standard kind of people, but now we have changed. So education has changed. We need a profession. You need to be this and that. And as a result, family setup has become, I bring income to the house. So if my father or my brother doesn't bring income and I bring income because I went to school, then the person that brings the money, that's the person people are accepting. And that's the person people are respecting because they get the money or they get the bread from that person. So what happens is our men, most of them have left also school halfway, and because of certain pressures and certain conditions. And what we are saying is that kind of denial for the men has created also another layer of trauma, that they feel nothing, as a nobody. And as a result, they would become very aggressive in their conduct. I also think because they get aggressive or because they feel they don't belong so much, but it's also men with high status that does that. So some of the things you do is you take your wife and you take another girlfriend and you take another, just to ego yourself up a little bit, just to make yourself now much more stronger. So you use your sexual situation or your sexual being to become whatever. It's not really about, if there was a culture that has done that, it is done. But I'm thinking, sitting back and saying, with all these changes, is it really good that we must go out and have 5 wives? Is it okay? Because it was for men who had the money. Now these men who don't have the money, what they do is they go out and they eat from me, and they eat from the other girlfriend, and they eat from the other, and because it is maybe a sexual pleasure, we are all in there. And it's no more maybe because of family culture or family whatever. I remember people having 3 wives or 2 wives, bringing 2 plastic bags, one to this house and the other to that house, and women would not talk. But does it mean that women don't have pain? Does it mean that women don't think about what is it that this man is doing to me? Or is it that they are suppressed so that they keep quiet in the family household? Women had to be forced to take care of other women's children because they were given birth there and brought back here. Sometimes they don't even have the necessary resources to bring up these children, and as a result, not giving them the proper upbringing that they deserve, but because of the conditions that they are put in and the lifestyle, we call it either culture or lifestyle that we are in, we have to do that. And then we must stand out and praise that pain of ours by camouflaging our pain and celebrating that I'm fine with my husband having this many, as if we are just objects. We don't have feelings, we don't have whatever. And I hear him say activists are complaining, but I think it's maybe not more a complaint. It's really about this human being that is being abused like this, and that is quiet about this thing. And when I say I need to be listened to, if I say, no, I'm fine with my husband having 10 other wives, how do I feel? If maybe more interrogation comes to me, or more questions or more listening, I might even speak out and say it's painful as a human being. And so for children and family members growing with this, they also accept that. And they also live with it. And maybe sometimes that's the same thing that happens to this violence that we are experiencing today in our society, where we have been told not to talk about things, not to express ourselves. And as a result, what is happening now is that we are saying we have left out our men, because we were told not to talk back to them, not to question them. And when they are left out, we have left them out in a very bad way in the family. We have really let them be the ones speaking. But maybe when we are alone, as the women and the girls, we do our thing. And he feels out there alone. And now, when in the new change society, new families where families are now affluent families, they live in upstairs house and they live in gabashus, our men become very, very frustrated.
Let me just come in here. Honorable Kauandenge, it seems men are not taking the change very well. Of course, society has been known to have really advantaged men over the years, and men, of course, as far as gender-based violence is concerned, men have been perpetrators for so long. And now that at least a fraction of them finds themselves on the receiving end, it seems we don't know how to go about it.
Well, we must put men in two categories. One category is the one that I said, they just stand up, they just abuse women for no apparent reason, right? That's one category. The laws should deal with that, men. But you have another category of men that even as I'm speaking now, some will attest and say, but Kauandenge is telling the truth. That have taken their role so seriously to help. The one, according to the Bible concept, the one of the household, to help their girlfriends to become someone in life. And I detested that statement from the president. That's why I raised it in parliament to say...
It seems to have touched you, huh?
No, the president's statement was reckless, to say the least, honestly. To say that many men are at the bars while the women are starting. But let's bring another dimension to that discussion and say, but we also have men that are actually paying for their girlfriend's studies. Well, I'm a man, I have this vacation that I'm having, perhaps I'm a member of parliament, or I have started what. But I want my woman or my girlfriend also to be educated. I take money out of my own pocket, hard as it is. I support this woman to become someone in life. Once she graduates, I'm nothing. I'm relegated to wherever. She found Paul at UNAM, who's coming from a very good background. They just dumped me just there. But
were you then supporting her education financially for you to secure her in the long term, or was it a goodwill gesture?
No. When you are with someone and you love someone, you invest so much in that person. Obviously, you want to have a lifelong commitment with that person, isn't it? But then once that lady get what she wanted, she just dumped you there. That's one example. The other one, you are with your girlfriend. She's getting pregnant. You raise that child as yours, right? Somewhere down the road there, you love that boy or girl like nobody business. Somewhere along the line there, you are told, she tells you, and women, when they want to leave you, they are the most heartless beings that you can ever get. Believe me, the moment when they decide that now, it is the end. We the men, we might think, even if you want to leave, what must I do, man? How do I approach this? But for a woman, the moment when she decides that she's going, she will tell you whatever she wants to tell you, and she goes without any remorse. Then she tells you, 3 years down the road, that this child is not yours. You say, what? No, it's Paul's child. Really? So men are also having these traumatic experiences that really nobody listens to, or they don't talk about it, but they do have them in that corner. So now that's why I'm saying that when a woman walks into a police station to say, Matthias Haufiku has beaten me, our law enforcement officials there or officers there, they don't ask the question, the very important question, what did you do for you to be beaten by your men? No, they don't. For them, it's you are beaten, the man must be arrested, he must go to jail, he must prove his case in court. All what I'm saying is that there is a time that we must also look to these underlying reasons why we have some of these conflicts in the household. And importantly, one thing that we missed, and women activists missed, is the issue of women equal rights and these things of saying we are all equal before the law, and when a woman is bringing in money in a household, she's equal to a man, and these things. These things are the things that have brought our society to where we are today. Because we have women, I know of some, that are well placed off, high ranking in high positions in our society. But you will be amazed when you come at their household, how that woman treats the husband. She's educated, and in fact, she's also earning more money than the husband. But when she walks in that door, and the husband walks in that door, you will just see the way that woman is treating her husband with respect. Our young girls today, because of these laws that are sometimes they are also misinterpreting the laws and the meaning of the laws. They simply don't have respect to their partners to start with. And this translates into marriages. Now, in a marriage where everybody is equal, or a relationship where everybody is equal, where if I say no, you say yes, if I say what, you say what kind of a relationship or what kind of family household are we building? We will not build them. And this is, I think, where, from my understanding, where we really went wrong. Either those proponents, those who brought the laws of equal rights between men and women, did not explain forcefully of what they meant. The same example you can use is about children's rights. I mean, Matthias, you will be sitting in your house. You ask your boy of 15 years old, where are you coming this time? No, it's my right to be out. What? Who said that? No, the law says so. So we have really disseminated our African traditional beliefs in the name of equal rights for everybody. Or it's misunderstood by those that we intended to address. And that is my problem.
Well, we'll go for a short break and we'll come and continue this conversation. Of course, to our viewers, just stand by briefly. Our conversation will continue after the short break.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. We crunch the numbers that matter, decipher statistics that shape Namibian lives, discuss smart money, and explore the impact of global development locally. Money makes the world go round, so catch us on NTV, oneup2.com, and the Facebook platforms of the Namibian Sun, Republikane, Algemene Zeitung, and Namibia Media Holdings. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Well, we're back from that short break. Let's continue the conversation. Ms. Namises, I'll start with you. Just before I went to the break, Honorable Kauandenge spoke about the issue of rights. And he gave an example of his son coming home late, and if he questions the son would say, no, it's my right to be out there. And of course, certain sectors of society has touched on this important question to say, is there a conflict between our laws and our cultural and traditional norms, setups, and beliefs, and the values that we've been accustomed to over the years? Are the laws speaking to that aspect?
I think before the laws were with us, we had those very cultural values and norms. And I think we had those standing up very strong. And some of them, when I look at it, and I'll not be apologetic about that, was harmful, some of our cultural values. But I bow down to those that has really been very strong and very worth a while, and also taken me to it and be with it. And those were many things like the respect, aspect of respect. And I think our elderly people had that notion where they would say that they are to be respected. No child speaks into my mouth, and the thing that happens here just happens like that. Of course, some of that was very strict. I couldn't have an opinion, but with the law now has come and said, at least let the children have an opinion. Let them be part of it. So with that respect for elders, respect my word, listen to me, let me put the rules here, came the one says, let the children also have a say. So I think in our household, the laws didn't say throw away all what you know, but and bring in our human rights, Article 15 here, and do this. But it was like, what am I doing in my household with this story of respect? How do I bring it and blend it together with the child has a say? And through that, I was supposed to mold a new way of living, a new way of being with the child. How do I bring in this question that a child must not be beaten? Oh, we know how we were beaten. I mean, we are the class of being beaten. we come from there. I remember my old teacher, the other day still thinks that he's still alive, but my rib was beaten to be broken. Is that how I'm to be disciplined? When I'm really thinking about it now. But that time, teacher beat me. My mom comes, she adds and says, "Bite." And then I go to the hospital. I get now treated and fine. So now that aspect, the law says, don't beat to kill. Beat to discipline. Beat to orient, beat to guide, beat to make this person somebody. So that law or practice of being so violent should be put here now with these laws of don't be so violent. And we create a law in our household where we maybe talk to each other. And when I talk, I still talk as the parent, and you are still the child. But I take your view or kind of thing, but I don't wake up and beat you up with a hot kettle or whatever. I don't, it's not only for the laws of the land, but it's for the human being that you are bringing up. So what we didn't bring together is that we were standing on, this is our culture, this is how I will bring this child up, and therefore what you are bringing is making it yamakar. It's making the children out of order. If I say, and I have brought up, luckily I was brought up by a man, and therefore I would really also speak a bit differently, because I think my dad did anything that a parent could do, and he was a single dad. And therefore I grew up maybe in the other mode, where I realized when I looked out in the world, I was shocked. Oh my goodness, I'm not supposed to do this. It's the man's thing. I'm not supposed to do this. It's a what thing. But I was brought up to just a child, and with some laws and some discipline here. But then what happened is these young people are sunrising. So they don't even know the law. They just live their confused life. They don't even know that they should come back home, or they have a protective act that says children's what. And they are just having an attitude. They are just having a culture that they have created for themselves, their own way of dealing with the adults in the house. And that really is ill discipline. And it's really disrespect for the people. So I think what should happen there? and how should we bring about the correction. And a very little girl who goes stand in the sex work industry, the little boy who goes and in the hubbly-bubbly. I think it is not the law, it is the character and the absence of some fathers and some mothers in the household that brings this kind of thing to the children and to the new youth, to the new generation. And these are the people that we are bringing up. So for me, it's really not so much the looking at these two has become in conflict, but it is how are we moving with what we have into this, what we are given. Because we have talks agreed to take on this constitution, and therefore out of this constitution eminent many other laws and many other things that we have to do. So how do we blend together and take the essence, the cherries, and leave the bitter parts? And if the bitter parts are there, how can we again rework the bitter parts and make a whole thing for our lives to become much more livable and loving?
Okay. Honorable Kauandenge, law versus culture. Well, you sit in Parliament where the laws are crafted, and it's surprising that lawmakers have these concerns. When you engage the grassroots, the very people that feels the effects of these laws, are we getting it wrong as lawmakers? Why are we crying about our own laws?
We have been getting it wrong since time immemorial. And I'm telling you that as far as I'm concerned, and because I'm just new in Parliament, I'm only, 2 years now in Parliament, 3 years now in Parliament, those that have made these laws, including the current government, have really messed up our society as far as I'm concerned. Because on one hand, we want to go, apparently we are not living in an island on our own. We want to go with time and copy everything around the world, human rights, children's rights, what have you, what have you. Our schools today, it's a total mess. Why? Because when we were growing up, obviously we were beaten up, not to die, but on the buttocks. We were beaten up. We become exemplary in our schoolwork. We become what we are today. It's because of being beaten up and being disciplined. That's why we are here as leaders of this society. And anybody of our generation that went through that period will tell you that during that time, a child did not only belong to you. Your child was a child of the community. When that child is outside there, playing outside there, and they are doing something wrong, a parent that is passing by will beat those children. And when they run to you to come complain, you say, what did you do? No, that man beat us, what? You beat them again. In fact, if you know that person, you will go to him and say, thank you that you beat them. Because the child belonged to the community. It was not your child. Today, if you beat my child outside there, I will make a police case against you. You have beaten my child. So, honestly, when it comes to the school environment, there is a law that says kids must not be beaten. Period. Right? Now, what do these kids do in school? They are on an island in a honeymoon. They do whatever hell they want to do because they cannot be beaten. The next thing that you can do is to expel them. To expel them to where? If you cannot discipline a child. So our moral fabrics really have been destroyed by these laws that we have bring in this country. And that's why I'm saying, for us to have a households or households that are domestic violence free, we must not only look to the aspect of punitive measures alone. We must also look as to what can we do as a government, as lawmakers, to actually irradiate and bring this person, rehabilitate them to become useful citizens of our country. Because if we just think about punitive measures, we will put them in jail. Fine. But you put this one in jail, 10 others are outside there doing exactly the same thing. So it doesn't help. And this is what I wanted to convey to the Minister of Justice in that parliament, that you can increase the maximum sentences for domestic abuse, violence, abusers. You can make it 10, you can make it 15, you can make it what. So long as you don't address these societal evils in the society, and then bring or take Namibia back to the biblical doctrines of respect within the household. I'm telling you, we can do whatever we want. And unfortunately, our women folks are getting away with murder at times. Because if you also look closely, in some cases, our women are the ones that are also provoking these men at the end of the day to beat them up. Yes, with abuse of emotional abuse, economical deprivation, sex deprivation, and all these other things. But nobody cares about that aspect. Nobody cares. Right. So what are we now to do as a society? What are we to do as a society is to try to go back to the basics and try to see whether we are off the rails somewhere. And this is really my belief, that we are off the rails somewhere in this whole equation of human rights and women rights and kids' rights and what have you. That whole thing, we are off the rails somehow. And really, I'm of the opinion that even when this domestic amendment bill is passed now, with the minimum or maximum sentences that are proposed, it will be passed. But still, we will have them killing one another, beating one another in the household. So we must go down to the basics and start finding out what are the underlying reasons why this is happening. Yes.
Namises, do you agree with those sentiments?
Not with all. I think, what must happen is we have to, we can't make laws about how to deal with my trauma. There, I think it's a health matter. The Ministry of Health should help, and the counseling and psychiatrists, people, counselors, and all those must really help us to deal with our traumas that we are sitting with. We have never been, the government can make a law for reconciliation and for restorations and that can be followed as a program. I think that is okay. Women provoking, I think, this is a very serious allegation of us provoking the men. I think that again borders down to entitlement of men, and where women are battered women syndrome, that's trauma. They need to be helped so that they can counsel and find themselves back, and also a man anger management. And I think in this amendment we were saying our men should be helped to not only be removed out of the house, for example, but they must be helped to go for rehabilitation so that they can get rehab for anger management. Because I think, as we said earlier, there is so much packed on the man that he wants to explode and he wants to fight. And the only way he can do that is his strength, and therefore his aggression, and therefore he can choose the weakest person to fight with. I think man-to-man fight is a bit difficult. They can stand there and fight, but they can't. You'd rather stab each other and so on. So I think that should be one way. And also, if possible, the women also to go through some psychological treatment, so that the relationship is about communication, it's about good communication, it's about really living in an environment and in a space where I'm consenting to things that are happening. And if I'm against things, I haven't given the right to either my partner or to my big son or to my elderly daughter to beat me up. I think there is a way how we can deal with it. And I think it's also important here that we look at the Christian dogma or the religion. Earlier on, Mr. Kauandenge was saying that 99.1% we are. And those people are the very ones. So something is also wrong there in the Christian teaching and in the Christian beliefs that we are carrying. We have maybe lose some of the things that that he's also talking about. And therefore, we need to bring it together. And church people, yesterday, a little girl, not a little big girl, she was killed about 2 weeks ago by a alleged partner. And the preacher was preaching and saying that the closed door story should come out. And I think it's important that the church deals with the closed door story. And the organizations, the church, the different places. I mean, the school should handle disciplining children. They should not be busy with disciplining children, boys coming with knives, girls coming with issues of each other. No, that's not the place there. Then we target the school as a wrong rehab center and not as a school. So this contextualizing of our lives and bringing the church down from the heaven to the ground should really start to happen, so that they can also stop sending back people when the women report, and even maybe the men report for their wife's behavior or husband's behavior. The church says go and pray about it. Instead of go and pray about it, what do we add towards the prayer? And I think that would help us much more, really, than asking the state to regulate the church. I think they are far gone already, the churches. They have many institutions and many characteristics of teaching their people the dogma. And I think that should be regulated then, if there's any regulation, so that people stream a holistic healing approach, a contextual approach, and families are really having a place where they can find a safety net.
Well, Ms. Namises, Honorable Kauandenge, thank you very much for your time and insight tonight. It was really a pleasure having you in studio this evening. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, that's all from the agenda team. Well, we'll see you next week, same place, same time, and wish you a very pleasant week ahead. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Careers Bistro focuses on the movers and shakers in the corporate world. It takes the content of the Careers Hub that is inserted every Friday in the 3 NMH dailies, Republikane, Namibian Sun, and Algemeine Zeitung, to viewers on social media. This show is broadcasted on NTV, oneup2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Careers Hub, the Republikane, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and Namibia Media Holdings. Careers Bistro focuses on car interviews, career motivational videos, the ups and downs of different careers, keeping in touch with business, and more. For career-related content or advertising queries, please contact zone@synergy.com.na.